Juicy tidbit time. We're going to be talking about the roll volley. Dekel, just give us an air motion. What's the roll volley?
Roll volley,
Boom.
backhand, forehand.
But mostly we're going to focus on the backhand right now. It's the start that you see Dekel and Ben and a few others hit. It's really important. When?
Two main times. One, when your opponents are back and you're trying to keep them back. So you're rolling the ball to their feet or just deep because they're behind the baseline. You don't want to use it when they're creeping in and ready to bounce, because usually we'll hit the roll volley when the ball is net level or below the net level, and then we're hitting it up usually. Sorry, Ryan. If the ball is higher, we're hitting a regular volley down, so different volley. So again, one is when they're back and you're trying to keep them there. Two is when, let's say I'm dinking cross court with my opponent, and I can take the ball from the air and redirect it towards the person in front of me, and then I can go to a few different spots and attack them. So this is basically an attack. Not always to win the point, but sometimes to set up the next shot.
And the key thing here, and the reason why we use it on force, is because if someone hits a drop or a reset that is at the net level or slightly below, we want to be able to keep them back and not just have to kind of volley that or let it bounce. Like, we want to actually keep the pressure on within reason. And if you don't have this shot, then you can't really do it, because as soon as you step back to try to hit that, it's going to be low and they're already coming in and you give them time. So
right, they have more time. The further back I go, they have more time to do it. The ball travels towards me here and from me to the line. It's just double the time that they get.
And if you're working on, I would say if you're working on integrating this, you start with using this as a 4th and 6th ball technique. It gets a little bit tougher. There's certainly like a jump up in difficulty to execute this, in judging the right dink to do it on that's you're catching out of the air. And then, you know, whether you hit a good one or a bad one, that shot in follow-up, you know, as a counter is much tougher to plan, as opposed to they're already within 1 feet of the baseline. Let me kind of keep them back. You know, it's start with it, using it consistently in as a 4th shot.
For sure. And this is not an easy shot at first. It won't go as smooth, but like with everything, with reps, you'll get better and better at it and understand when to use it better.
So before we hit a ball, let's kind of convey the importance of your feet, your body stature, your positioning, and then we can apply some air motion, patent pending air motion.
So regardless if my opponents are in the back or I'm hitting cross court and waiting or trying to attack my opponents, this is my ready position, arms in front, and then if the ball comes to my backhand, I'm hitting the ball from below the net or net level, from down to up. Very important. You want to get that spin from your paddle. It's important to have your paddle facing this way, your opponent. If the paddle is facing up, then I can't really generate that top spin, and the ball will just go up. If my paddle is facing my opponent like this, then I can brush the ball from underneath the ball, go up, and that's what creates our spin, the friction with our paddle. It's not too much of the wrist. People think sometimes, oh, this is just a lot of wrist. I need to come over the ball like that to create the top spin. No, it comes from coming under the ball and brushing it, exactly like Ryan is showing us.
I feel like a flight attendant.
Yes. Another thing is, the lower the ball is, the more I'm coming from under the ball and going up. The higher the ball is, the more I am kind of going through the ball and going forward. In general, you want to do both all the time, go forward and up. And just the ratio of how much forward and up you go depends on how high or low the ball is.
So another flight attendant visual. So this is purely out and away from you, similar, like if you're doing a block in a volley. And then up, obviously, is like, you know, that paddle. But we kind of want it probably defaulting at a 45-degree angle. But as Dekel said, if you're going low, it's got to be like this. If it's here, you're kind of more out and up. Kind of tossing that
and
out.
We'll show you a few examples. So you'll see when the ball is higher, I'm going a little bit more through the ball. And if the ball is lower, I'm going a little bit more up and less forward. But it's still almost always, or always, it's forward and up.
Where is your elbow I have two questions. Where is the
Yeah.
elbow and or arm? Like, are we trying to cock this up? And two is sometimes I see your paddle goes back relative to where your wrist is back. Like, is that a important part or not?
So I would focus, in general, I would focus for this shot to come from your shoulder, to go down to up like this from your shoulder.
That's why we got to get in the weight room, picklers.
Yes.
That's why you got to be physically fit.
And next step, once you get a little bit better with it, and you control your wrist a little bit better, you add a little bit of wrist to it. Again, the wrist is not our focus. Our focus is from it coming from our shoulder. As you see, my elbow is forward, my arm is forward, and it's coming from my shoulder here. But I'm also adding some wrist to it. I'm not adding this crazy wrist to add the spin. I'm just adding a little bit of wrist to add some more pop to it. And that will come naturally as you get better in this shot. So don't try as soon as you start it. Just try a lot of wrist. Build into it. Slowly use a little bit more wrist, and you'll understand how much you can or cannot do. But don't, especially at the start, don't focus on the wrist.
If you are working into your game and you are at this intermediate level where you don't need to be cautioned about the wrist, I would say my hot take is the higher balls where you're going more out is where you get a little bit more of that wrist, because you're throwing your kind of arm and shoulder at it, but that's where the wrist comes in. But below the net, it gets really dicey on trying to involve that wrist prematurely, and that will come, as you said, that's the last 10 or 20% of this that will work into it once you've hit 300 of these deliberately, in that brushing up.
I mean, we do have the players like J-Dub who uses a lot of wrist, and it's kind of a little bit of a different back and roll than what like Ben is using, for example, which is more similar to this one. J-Dub uses a lot of wrist this way to create power, but it's usually on the balls that are a little bit higher, and this is different than the ball we're talking about exactly right now. So under the ball, paddle facing my opponent, and brushing underneath. Very simple, coming from my shoulder, not a lot of wrist involved, if at all. I'll add one with a little bit more wrist. But again, it's not unnecessary. This would be my suggestion to start. Give me one more.
Yes,
start
sir.
like this. Nice top spin with no wrist at all, coming from your shoulder, as we said.
And I think the important thing that I can see from this angle is that paddle face being relatively square or shut to me. It's not this. You kind of got to get that ball off your paddle and up and away from you. Yeah.
Great. And we do use our wrist to rotate our paddle this way or that way. So you do want to use your wrist to get in the good position like that.
Slow-mo enable. Here we go. Back to real time. Now, what are the considerations if you're trying to do this as a speed up so you do get this ball that's a little too high on the cross-court dink? Does the technique change, and or what do you have to look out for next?
Yeah, first things first, I'm in the athletic position and I'm leaning in looking for that ball. If I'm not in a good ready position, it's harder for me to recognize it. I'm looking.
And one note on that, that's why you see Ben or J-Dub kind of like they're looking for it, and then if they decide that it can't be or should be attacked, then they default to the dink. But they're looking for it stable. They're not kind of like grasping for straws. They're like looking for it. No, it's not there. Then now I need a dink. And then they're looking for it. No, it's not there. But they're like poised to do it. It feels like their first option. And if they get a ball, then they pull the trigger on it. If they don't, then they just dink and they continue the shot.
I want to hit this shot to a few different spots. So first of all, if I know my opponent's tendencies, then I'm going for their weaker area. And two, the chicken wing is always a good spot to go to. People struggle to cover this area, so this will be definitely one of my go-tos. And if my opponent is covering it well, I'll just keep adding different spots. I don't want Ryan there to know where I'm going. If I keep hitting the same spot over and over again, Ryan will just sit on it after 1 or 2 times, and yeah, and just I will lose the point. So varying your attacks is important, and in every aspect, in every spot in the court. Every attack you do, variance is great. Also, I am ready. This is kind of like for the next step. If I'm attacking certain spots, I'm also covering for the combination. Like we said, sometimes this is not a winning shot. I'm setting up myself for an easier shot. So if I'm attacking Ryan's forehand over there, I'm most likely sitting on my backhand after, because it's unlikely Ryan was so ready that with his forehand he was able to get it all the way cross court. He's most likely going to hit it to this area, which I can cover with my backhand, and then I have a nice combo thanks to my backhand roll.
Oh!
He doesn't trust me.
Boom.
No.
We're going to end on that one. But yeah, that's the juicy tidbit, the roll volley. Start to work it in your drilling, in your deliberate practice, and then start to try it in a smart situation in your rec games.
Yes, and slowly you can add some wrist to it. It's a little wrist flick. It is helpful, it is good, but start with the basics from your shoulders.